I got a problem. I got a strange addiction. Somebody help me. I need an intervention. It ain't alcohol or weed. There's just one thing that I need. I got an addiction to fruit trees. Got an addiction to fruit trees. I take a persimmon to breathe. Hey, the next one I'm getting jujube. Got an addiction to fruit trees.
Peace, family. So this is my favorite apple. This is the pink lady that I planted here, pretty much as an experiment. You know, I mentioned to you all quite a few times before that we had this black walnut that was right over in this area that I cut down. The black walnut produces a chemical called juglone that kills or prohibits the growth of other trees. Apples are one that do not do well when there's a black walnut in the area. So I put this down to see if I would be able to plant the rest of them. So I'm basically sacrificing my favorite tree. Excuse me, guys. I'm sacrificing my favorite tree, my favorite apple tree, you know, for the sake of this experiment to see if I can plant other apple trees here. The rest of my apple trees that are still in the containers, they pretty much, you know, all their leaves are pretty much gone. You know, they may have a few left. This one still has leaves on it. I mean, they're browning and they're going, but it still has leaves. So I'm hoping that that's a good sign. But today, we still have a few days left in November. Today I will be planting a few things. Now, if you look here, we've already planted, these are strawberries that still seem to be doing pretty good after being transplanted from the pot that this was in. But we've also sprouted and planted some green onions. And we've done that in a few different places. But I'm also going to be planting some daffodils and some shallots. I'm planting, and then there's some garlic there as well that I'll be planting. So you can do this in the cold months. You can do this in the fall. You know, as long as the soil is workable, which, you know, my soil is still workable, you can still do this and, you know, have some success. So I'm planting these things now while I still have workable soil. The reason I want to plant them also is because I'm hoping that they'll help to deter like the underground dwellers. I'm going to be planting like the daffodils in these beds, like around the edges. And I'll also be putting some garlic in there. I'm hoping that the smell from the daffodil bulbs and the garlic bulbs will keep them from getting to my root crops next year. This bed here, there's a fig tree that I planted. You know, all the leaves and stuff are gone. It's small, it's little, but that's a Smith fig. Hopefully it survives, and you know, we'll see. But I still want to plant annuals in this bed, you know, and I want to plant root crops. Like, you know, my beets, the ones that I was able to get, they were great, but I lost a lot of them to these underground dwellers. So I'm hoping that the bulbs from the daffodils and the garlic will help to deter them. We'll see. If that doesn't work next year, then I'll look to getting they have these, I think Homestead Heart showed it. Yeah, she did. It was these gopher repellent spikes that you can put in your beds, and they send off a sound that they don't like. So I'll look into getting that if the bulbs don't work next year. But you know, that's pretty much it. But this is, you know, another one of my fall activities. So, you know, everything is going to sleep, but there's still stuff out here that can be done. All right, so we planted the daffodils and garlic in this bed, these two beds. And we also planted some garlic around the apple tree. Now the daffodils, there were a few of them in the bag, and you'll find this in some of those bags that were rotted out. But I didn't really sweat that because there were a lot of the bulbs that I was able to divide, and you know, that basically made up for it and then some. So it's all good. We'll see how it comes out, and if I need to, I'll plant some more later on. But I think they'll be all right. But this is where I planted the peach tree, and there's some. They got strawberries here, a few green onions here as well. We got some struggle mint. I think it'll be fine, but we got mint trying to grow. And I'm gonna plant a few shallots here. So basically, you know, what I'm doing as far as planting the shallots is I'm going to pull away at the wood chips, boop, and then just kind of cover it up. I'll leave the top exposed, and that's pretty much it. That's it. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'll come back. All right, so we're done. We planted all the garlic. We planted the daffodils. We planted the shallots. One of the wonderful things about having, you know, things like garlic and onions and daffodils and shallots and leeks and things like that, these are alliums. You know, daffodils are also an allium. But these alliums, they stay green longer. Look at my oregano. It's still booming. I'm gonna take off some more of the seeds. I've got a lot of seeds in the house, but I'm gonna take off some more of the seeds once they dry out a little bit more. But and then here's an example of them staying green longer. When your trees and stuff start dropping leaves, and you know your annuals are not really doing it anymore, green onions, they're still green. Like, I still can harvest from these green onions, and they'll still continue to grow. Daffodils do the same thing. They stay green for a long period of time, and like all the other alliums, they're some of the first to sprout up when the weather breaks. The reason that's important is because as long as these things are green, that means that they're still utilizing the photosynthesis process. This is garlic from last year, onions. They're still utilizing photosynthesis. And that means that they're pumping nutrition, they're pumping food into the soil by way of what's called root exudates. I've talked about that before, and others have talked about that before. So while everything else is sleeping, like this is my fig tree on its way to dormancy, you know, your alliums are still working. They're still pumping food into that soil biology, because your soil biology, it stays active. Like, I've talked about this plenty of times, how I've gone into my soil, in the soil beds, you know, to do like my composting in place. If I had food scraps in the wintertime, I'll go in, I'll dig them in, and then cover it back up. And there's still worm activity in the soil. So your soil biology is still active. This is my comfrey on its way to sleep, but it's still, you know, still going through the photosynthesis process. Rosemary is still going through photosynthesis. You know, there's a lot of things that will still go through photosynthesis longer. And that provides food for the soil biology. These are more garlics. They're still working. So it's still feeding your soil. It's still making your soil rich with nutrients and things like that. So just plant garlic, plant, you know, green onions. Just plant them everywhere. Put them all in your annual beds if you do annuals. Put them around your trees if you do trees, so that they'll continue to work. I put some of the shallots and garlic over in this area. This is the area where I've been building up, you know, my soil. This is where we had the cars, where it was just nothing here. These are my persimmon trees that I planted here. There's some comfrey that's still green. We got a few strawberries here. And if you can see here, and a few back there is where I put the shallots. You know, you want to get stuff in your soil that'll continue to work. We want to work smarter, not necessarily harder. And if you can get plants that you also benefit from to help you in that way, then, hey, by all means, do it. But that's pretty much it, fam. I mean, you still got time. If your soil's workable, you can still put these things in the ground. So, all right, family, I will catch you on the next one. Peace. One other thing real quick, and I hate when I do this, but so even areas where, you know, we went through the process of sheet mulching and preparing an area for a future fruit tree, right? This is where I'll be planting a fruit tree. Specifically, I've got some fruit tree cuttings that I'm rooting and sprouting inside right now. One of them is the Allium, and that's where the LSU Allium. That's where this one will go. But in places where you are preparing for trees, where you're letting, you know, pretty much your soil sit. Like we put cardboard down to smother out the weeds. We put, you know, some of that forestry material. We put things like food scraps and coffee grounds, and then we topped it off with a thick layer of wood chips. But places like this, plant your alliums in there as well, because while your stuff is breaking down and the microbes are working, you know, you want to also give them more that you can feed them, you know, through photosynthesis. So put your alliums in these areas, and once you get ready to plant, if it's in the way, you know, just move them over, you know, pull them up, replant them somewhere else. But, you know, but let those alliums work for you. So put alliums everywhere that you'll be planting. Anywhere you'll be planting, put garlic, onions, shallots, leeks, whatever. But plant your alliums. All right, family. Peace for real this time.